Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crow Canyon's webinar on Introducing NITRO Studio. Today, we're going to be focusing on NITRO Forms in the Power Portal, which are part of the NITRO Studio. And tomorrow, we'll be having a webinar at the same time on NITRO workflows and custom actions, which are also part of NITRO Studio. So again, welcome, and looks like some people are still joining, but we'll get going and get us into the webinar. So this is going to, as I said, this is going to be on the NITRO Forms in Power Portal, which are NITRO Studio, part of NITRO Studio. So I will go into more of NITRO Studio briefly, and then go into the NITRO Forms with a demo in the Power Portal specifically. My name is Scott Restivo. I am the President and CEO of Crow Canyon Software. We have been in business for almost 20 years, doing applications, business applications in the Microsoft space. The past 12 years or so, we have been working in the Microsoft SharePoint and Office 365 application space, developing business applications for organizations around the world. We have out-of-the-box applications ready to go, such as Help Desk and others, which I'll show in a moment. We have NITRO Studio, which we're introducing. I'll explain that in a moment also. And we also have custom solutions we do. Some people come to us with specific needs, and they want to convert or develop an application based on their specific requirements, and we can do that in SharePoint and Office 365. So the business applications that we have out of the box and that are used worldwide by many organizations right now include pretty much these core business applications that you find at many organizations like Help Desk, Asset Management, Customer Services, Facilities, Equipment Tracking. All these are ways that we have developed to use SharePoint and Office 365 in ways that provide real business functionality and meet real business needs. Now, when I say SharePoint, that's also SharePoint on-premises and SharePoint online in Office 365. So we have applications that span both, work in both worlds, all the way from SharePoint 2010, though we're not doing much in that these days, more like SharePoint 2013, 2016, and a lot of work in the Office 365 space these days. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Well, okay. Let me explain where this is coming from. As we developed the SharePoint applications in the Office 365 ones, we found that SharePoint had quite a bit out of the box. It has site collections, lists, libraries, permissions, kind of a good foundation for building applications, but it wasn't enough to really make these core business applications work. We needed to add more functionality. So what we came up with: forms, workflows, custom columns, email sync, reporting, database integration, all the many requirements that SharePoint does not have out of the box that we added on in order to be able to provide these applications, the functionality that is required in these applications. And so what we had done, we realized over time, is develop a NITRO, we call it a layer, an application service layer that we named the NITRO layer. And we were using this internally as a way of enhancing SharePoint or Office 365 with this NITRO layer, with the apps and the web parts and everything else that provide that added functionality. And we were building our applications and our custom development out of that. And we still do that. That's the basis of our applications, basis of our development. But what's new is that we have decided and moved forward over the last year or so with commercializing and making the NITRO layer, the NITRO Studio, available to people who want to build their own applications. It has many, many capabilities and tools in it, as you'll see, and it comes out of our real world experience with building applications. It's not just some theoretical thing. This is what we found that we needed when we were building applications that are used by enterprises around the world. So out of that came NITRO Studio. NITRO Studio, a set of enhancements, suite of enhancements to SharePoint Office 365, a set of apps that do forms, workflows, reporting. It allows you to quickly develop applications, flexible and easily deployed. And it can be simple or complex, and also can be used in conjunction with other SharePoint tools that are out there, Flow and Power Apps, and those kind of things. And we now have a new website we came up with called nitro.studio. easy to get to, easy URL to remember. And we just launched that site as part of our the big conference in Vegas. And now we have it right here. We have our Crow Canyon site, and we also have the NITRO.studio site. See, Crow Canyon software. This is a part of our Crow Canyon software, and you can go here and look at features, components, pricing, etc. for NITRO Studio right there. So now, rather than go on the NITRO Studio and website, we're going to jump right into a live demo. And then I'll start to show you the forms and portal. First, we're going to look at the studio itself. NITRO Studio is installed into a site collection and into a site, and then you're able to have all these capabilities available on however you want to use them in your site. Now, if you get one of our out-of-box applications, this is an underlying component that comes with it, and then you'll be able to manipulate that application if you want. But if you want to start with a bare bones site and build from there, you can also do that using this studio. So this would be a link to from the site that you're in. In this case, we're in a customer service site, and it has these, NITRO Studio has all these different apps. You can see them listed here. We have forms, workflows, reports, Power Portal, and a number of other ones. We'll go into the forms, NITRO Forms, and the Power Portal today. Workflows, we'll look at the webinar tomorrow. And we also will look at custom actions tomorrow. So workflows and custom actions are both about automating and streamlining business process, whereas NITRO Forms and Power Portal are more about UI, UX, and engaging and empowering the users to use your application and creating very useful and functional forms. Now, there's a number of other capabilities inside of the NITRO Studio. That's the reporting, the advanced approvals, advanced lookup, cascade lookup, all these different things that are in here. And we do have videos that in our video library on that NITRO Studio site that go into detail about each one. And we have a tutorial about each video available about each one of these apps. So you can explore those in depth. Right, today we're going to focus on the forms and portal. Okay, let's go right into that. Now, I want to go through a little bit of the history of SharePoint Forms, and then we can see where our NITRO Forms Designer tool came out of. So looking back in what comes out of the box of SharePoint, we can see that here is a task list. Now, this has a little bit of branding, so it shows up in blue, but basically, when you look at it out of the box SharePoint, a list item will be a set of columns, as many columns as there are, and it'll just go on and on and on. This one happens to have maybe 10 or 12 columns. If it had 50, they would all be listed in sequential order here, right down. You can change the order and do other things, but really not much you can do with how that is displayed out of the box. So this is a kind of out of the box task you'd get here. Now, the next step after that, people realized that that was insufficient, so they started to do another style where they would take the list item, the SharePoint list item, inject some JavaScript and CSS into it, and then establish some kind of tabbed format, tabbed or sectional, so you get some organization here. Now, we have a tool that does this too, but that's not our Forms Designer, because we realized that even this was inadequate and had deficiencies. This tool is useful only to a certain extent, and one of the biggest constraints on it, the kind of tools that do this, where they load a list item, inject some JavaScript and CSS during the loading process, and then able to display it in this kind of tabbed or section format. Well, one of the biggest problems we found is that this kind of style of operation will load all the SharePoint data, all the columns, not just the columns you want to display, but all the columns and all the data. And that gives a delay to it, to the loading. Also, when you are using a tool like this to create a SharePoint form, you don't here, for instance, is an old tool we have, an old Forms Manager. You see, it's not a visual, it's not a UI, a graphical interface. It's just kind of showing. You can add fields on and off this tab. You can add new tabs. I mean, you can do some things, but it's not anywhere near what we found adequate. And that's why we developed the NITRO Forms Designer tool to give you a lot more flexibility. So let's jump over to our NITRO Forms tool and start taking a look at that. Here is our NITRO Forms Designer. We're working on a list called the tickets right here, and we're working on a new tickets form right here. Now, as you can see, this is a graphical interface that gives you a WYSIWYG kind of way to design your forms rather than the other way we were just looking at previously, where you just have like kind of a textual listing of the form. This gives you a UI you can work with and easily drag and drop. And also, it really expands the capabilities of what you can do with forms. We have actions and advanced items I'll go into, different ways you can do settings, different forms you can design. And there's a lot here, and that's what we'll focus on right now and see why this is a much better way to approach forms design inside of SharePoint and Office 365. And again, one of the big parts of this is that it will load only the data that it needs, because it's running in a sense separately from the loading of the SharePoint list item. It's running and interacting with the SharePoint list, and only in the amount of interactions that's needed, not just taking the whole list item and showing it. It's now just loading the data it needs. So it's a quicker and more capable and flexible way to approach forms design inside of the SharePoint environment. So let's look at what's going on here. One thing, I'll stop for a moment and just mention that if you do have any questions, we do have some of our staff here ready to answer them and respond to that. Also, we can do one-on-one demos with you if needed to show you some particular details if you have questions. I realize that in a webinar, it's not as interactive, and we're not really having a conversation, interactive conversation on this, but we're very glad to do that if anything comes up as I go through this and you want to know more about one particular feature or whatever. Just let us know. We'll try and answer those in the question box or set up a meeting afterwards. Okay, so now we have a tickets form right here. In the actual program itself, this form will show up. Oh, wrong one. This form will show up here. When we click a list item, it's going to show up like this. So you have your tabs that are defined in that forms designer that I'm in right now. You also can see there's another button up here. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs. NITRO Forms has 6. The reason for this is that this consumer and account is showing or not showing depending on what is selected, what type of ticket it is. So that's one aspect of this, is the dynamic capabilities and permissioning that can go on, and I'll go into that. But let's see how this form, how easy it is to create this form. Okay, we have several sections over here that give you capabilities to modify the form and what it looks like. First of all, we have a theme. Now you can go into global settings and create your own themes that may be appropriate to your organization, but there are some out-of-the-box ones, and you easily change the colors here according if you wanted to have it look differently. So there's a lot of cosmetic capabilities here in terms of what the form will look like. You can also do tabs or sections. Sections will put this into sections here instead of tabs. You also can decide how you want the section displayed. Expand all, only expand the first section, whether you just want a line between the sections or nothing, or just a normal heading here. You go back to tabs. So we're back to tabs here. And then you can decide some of these action buttons, and I'll go into that when I go into the actions, where the actions get placed if you're going to put an action button on the form. Now, while you're in the tabs themselves or sections, there is a section on the right here that allows you to decide what you want to do as far as the general or permissions on the tab itself. So each tab will have its own tab settings over here. So you have a title, what's going to show up on the head of the tab. The number of columns, you can have 1 or 2. So if we went to 2, let's see what that looks like. So now it can be into 2 columns. You also can set the label position to be vertical instead of horizontal. So let's look at that and see what that goes. See, now the label is here instead of to the left. It's on the vertical. So it's a lot you can do. And it comes in very useful when you want to make the the different ways the tabs will look. Now that means that's specific to this tab, and you could have one tab showing with 2 columns and labels a certain way. Maybe it's better to have these columns vertical. It's only going to affect that one tab. The other tabs will stay the same horizontal. So each tab can be configured specifically. Now also the tabs or sections, if you're doing sections, can be given permissions, and permissions are quite interesting because now you can show or hide the tab depending on certain conditions of the form. In this case, we're showing and hiding account and consumer depending on what type of ticket it is right here. So if you go here and you say hide it when the type of ticket is consumer, you're going to hide the account tab. Very easy, but you can create much more specific, even down to the person, like only show it to these people or this group, that tab, and based on certain conditions. So you get very granular about who sees what tab on the form or what section. So going into there, we'll next go into the form controls. Form controls are the fields or columns that are on the list itself. You can decide to add another tab in if you wanted, very easily, drag and drop like that, or remove it. You can come in and take a column. Now you can search for the columns, which is sometimes easy to do. Find all the request error related columns, for example, or category, or you can just find them right there and drag them over. So let's see how easy that is. So we're going to drag over here. We have additional contact, consumer. Let's drag over request status over to here. There it is. So now request status is showing up right here. See, it's much more WYSIWYG drag and drop style than those older models. Now you want to move it around, you can. You move it up here. Just that easy to do, to move it around, put it exactly where you want it. And if you decide I don't want it on there, you can just take it right off like that. So it makes it very easy to manipulate what columns are on here. Now another aspect of this is that, for example, you can set column permissions. Previously, when we had the tab highlighted, we were looking at tab permissions or section permissions. Now we're looking at the settings and permissions for a specific column. So here you have 3 settings: general, permissions, and validations. General is the name of the column, requires that it contains information or not. You can set permissions. Again, this could be who sees this. It may only show up for certain people or only based on certain conditions. So now not just a tab is dynamically shown or hidden, but a column is dynamically shown or hidden by that. And that could be something very useful. We use that, for instance, in a CSR where somebody might type in a bank account number, for example, or membership number, and only that person needs to see it. A certain group of people need to see it, others don't. So it's makes a very useful and capable forms there that are very specifically geared to what your needs are. There's permissions there. Also the validations come in. We can say, okay, that field, say it is an account number and it has to be 3 digits dash 2 digits dash 3 digits, where you can validate that it's going to do that, or other types of validations using regular expressions and all that. So you can be very specific about what you want to have in there before the form can be submitted. And we can edit the column settings. This goes over and brings up the same thing as if you went to list settings and started using that column. By the way, you can also come in and create a column. You also can go to list settings and work the list from those perspectives also. Now, as you go through this, each column has the same capabilities. Come in, permissions, validations. You get as involved with that as you want to set that up for that. One thing also I want to mention here is that we have one form consists of 3 ways of showing it: when it's new, just being created; when it's being displayed after it's being created; and when it's being edited after it's being created. So we have 3 options here. You can design these forms to be the same, or you can design them. Okay, I'm not going to save the changes actually. We're going to come on. You can have a design and edit form and design and display form to be different than the new form. The new form might be very limited amount of information, and the edit and display might be more. So it really is up to you how you want to do that. Now, there's another option if you go into form settings that you could say, I want to use the same form for new, edit, and display. So you could either have separate forms or new forms. I mean, separate forms or the same form for new edit and display. So we wanted to give you as much flexibility as possible to create your forms. Now, the reason for that is we also use this in our application. So this, like I say, it comes from real world application development according to the needs of the many organizations that we've run into as we developed applications to make it as flexible as needed to adapt to those requirements. Okay, also in the form settings, you can create a new form or copy an existing form and make it into and multiple forms on the same list. So you could have a new form in here, you might want to call it request, and then start designing that form so that based on each one will have its own URL. So either in the quick launch or some other place, you can launch different forms even though they go into the same list. It doesn't have to be a tickets list, it could be a task list, it could be a contracts list, it could be a work order list. It really doesn't matter what the name of the list is, but the point is that you can have different forms for different requirements. So in an IT situation, you might have a different form for hardware requests than you would for break fix kind of incident issues there. And you could copy an existing form or just start with a new form, all together. And then you have your settings. You want to use the same form or different form, custom design or system design. So a lot of options here. And we create a request form here. And we go in and start adding those fields to it like we were doing the other one. And then we, eventually we could publish that and have a second form in that same list. So now you have two forms in there that you can work on. And I think what I'll do is save this one so we have it available, but I'll switch back to tickets since that's what we were working on originally here. So we're going back to the tickets. That's how easy it is to create. Now we have two forms up here. We could have multiple forms. It's that easy to create and stylize them and design them for what you want. So let's go into a little bit more of the capabilities here in the Forms Designer. And that is action. Well, I'll go into advanced first and then into actions. Advanced is where you are saying autofill certain fields based on things that are in the information that's in the SharePoint user list, the user profile, or the custom user information. So what you're going to say is, let's fill in the agent's information based on who the logged in user is. So the logged in user, we're going to go there, and when someone selects the agent or it's filled in automatically, it's going to fill in the department, email, and phone, pulling it from this record here of the user profile. So it's going to go there and automatically fill in information of whatever field you want. In that case, department, email, and phone. So if we went here and we wanted to put that on here, agent, phone, department, they would show up with filled in based on whatever the person is in the agent is right there. I'm gonna go ahead and publish that one. Just put it out there. So anyway, that came from the filling in of the autofill autofill setting. Now it could be the requester who's filling it out. Person just puts in their name, or actually it would already know who their name is because they're a logged in SharePoint user. And based on that, it would go to the user profile and fill it in. Now also what's interesting here, you can go to a custom user information list. Maybe you have a list that you created that's customer with information or contacts and information. And then you can go in and make all the settings where you want to match the column on the form with the column from the list that is maybe contact name, contact phone, contact address, contact us, are they on a service contract or not, or whatever. That kind of thing from a custom list that you have inside of there. You can pull that information in too based on the username or email address or whatever field you want to do. It can start filling in information automatically. This is the way we there's some automation being built into these forms of filling in information that's important and interesting here, needed for the use in the application. Now, another kind of advanced columns you could add here are cascaded. So we have category and issue type. When you select the category, it's going to decide what issue type. It's going to give you a selected list of issue types, not all of them, that you can put in there based on the category. So my category might be network issue, and the issue types might be internet or login or whatever. And then for another category, it'd be a different set of issue types. And that's set up with our lookup settings here, where you do a cascaded lookup. It can have multiple layers, not just two. It could have 3 or 4. And here, for instance, is the issue type, category and issue type. So when we choose filter values and issue type based on what's in the category, and then there's mappings that put all that together. So you have a cascaded lookup. You can have multiple ones. On this one, it has a customer and contact, brand and product that happen when you open up that form. So just to switch over there for a moment and look at this, you can see here's the form. I published it. And this is a customer service. You know, here we go. We have account. If we go here, we can see the consumer tab shows up. The account shows up. We have the agent. All that user information I just put in is here. I added email, phone, and department. It pulled it. I'm logged in as the admin account and put all this information in here. Based on the user profile from that, we have the cascaded where you choose the category of billing, and it's going to give you some, I guess there aren't any billing types associated with that. Oh, here it is, complaint, delivery, freight, you know, billing question. So there are different things you can set up here. Maybe it's a delivery issue, and there are damaged goods, delays, other, wrong item. So, you know, that kind of thing. Also, when you're on the additional information, the brand and product are cascading also. So you got your sticky glue brand, and you have your product of SG Construction Pro, you know, that kind of thing. So those are some of the cascaded lookup. I'm just showing you, switching over to form to show you the capabilities of what we're talking about when we're designing that form. And same with the account and contact here, where we choose like Bob's Woodworking Shop, and now we have the list of people who work at Bob's Woodworking Shop, as well as filling in the information here automatically about, you know, Magnus Erickson, for example. So that is, I'll leave that up for a moment and switch back to the form. Just want to show you the designer aspect and then the reality aspect of what actually happens when you use it over there. Another component here is the associated items settings here. So associated items mean that we can associate tasks, time tracking, anything really with this ticket. So based on certain conditions, certain you know, identification of this ticket, we can have a list, another elements from another list, items from another list show up on it. So here we have the, we're using the associated tasks from the associated task list in the same site, and we're filtering on the related ticket ID, and then we have that's going to show up on the form. Any associated tasks that are associated with this ticket will show up on the form. And we can do aggregate settings where we have summaries, and that's very good in purchase requests, for example, where it'll summarize the whole cost of the total cost of it, of all the associated purchase items associated with that purchase order, for example. So if we look at that, what that looks like back on the ticket form, and the tickets here, we see related items. There is a nothing associated with a new form, so there's nothing associated with it. If we had an existing one here, I don't know which one of these have any associated task associated with them, but if they did, it would show up on that related items tab. Oh, here's some. This has email history, actions. So you can see that it's giving you, it's displaying the related items that are related to this ticket from other lists, pulling it in and saying, here's all the emails that have come in. If there were tasks, they'd be here. You can create a new one, or you can you know, sort and group and paginate there. And that's all done in the NITRO Forms here. So if we go to associated items here and look at the setup of this, again, we can see, do we want to allow new entry? Do we want to allow editing? Do we want to allow deleting of that associated item from that related items tab? A lot you can do here. Also, you can decide what view is going to show up of the associated items when you see it in the on the tab. What are the fields that are going to show up for that associated task, and what form is going to be displayed when you open it up. So going back to the related items, what we've done is set this up so that there is a new item button here, and what fields are showing up here are determined by the view. So a lot of flexibility on how that's going to be displayed. In fact, I personally prefer to have the labels vertical, so I'm going to put that on there and make it like that. It gives you more space to see the items versus the other. Okay, then also in the advanced, you can do custom JavaScript. You can add some JavaScript in there. You can add some custom CSS. I won't go into that right now because that gets more technical, but there are ways you can further enhance this form and functionality through this. So we leave it open to you with, we can help with professional services, or maybe you know some of this already, to further enhance the form and what can be done and really make it useful and practical for people to use. I'm just publish this new form, confirm it. And so that I get that, that look right there. In fact, probably what I would do is maybe not even show this related items on the new ticket form. But I'm not going to the application design right here. I'm just trying to show you all the additional capabilities and everything. Now, one other thing that I think is really cool is this action capability, and we'll go into that right here. In fact, we'll do that on the display ticket form. It's the same ticket form, but now we're in display, and we're showing that there has been a escalate button added here. Escalate button was added. Now we could put that other places if we want, someplace on the form, someplace like lower down on the form, for example. Well, anyway, so over here, we're deciding what the action settings are. So it has an icon. It's going to go use this action called escalate. Well, this was done in our custom action. This is a custom action, and that's what the webinar tomorrow will go into more detail. But this is where the forms and the actions are interacting. We have created a custom action called escalate. And if we look at that, what that escalate action is, we can see that it is going to do, when you push that button called escalate, it's going to do certain things here. On the actions right here, it's going to set the priority to high, set the due date to today, and send an email to James and assign it. So it's going to do these update, and send email actions when you push that button. And now we've added that to the form, and we can, well, this is a little bit of tomorrow's preview of tomorrow's, but the custom actions can be added to the display form, the edit control box, the list view ribbon. Anyway, back to the form over here in the real world here, where we go look at this form in display mode. We have the escalate button right here, and the icon can be different. We can change the name and all that. Also, we have, it shows up here in the list in the item ribbon. It can show up in the list ribbon when you have the the item and you have the list. It can show up there, and you can take the action right there, escalate. Now, what's it going to do? It's going to set the priority to high. What's the priority right now? Well, let's choose one where the priority is not high. This one, normal. The priority is normal here. So let's go here and see this in action. It's always a risk in a demo, but I'm pretty sure it'll work. Escalate, set priority to high, set due date to today, and send email to James. So it did all those actions, and it's going to reload the form. And if we close it and refresh, we should see that the plungers with tube went up to high here. Yeah, see, plungers, problems with caulk plunger is now high, and James should have gotten an email. And the due date should have been set to today. Yeah, see, today, 5:30, right? So there we go. It did that action on there just by pushing that escalate button based on the action that we have defined in the custom action. So that's you could of course add other custom actions if you want, if you had any, many if you want up here. So it makes it really easy for the form to become that much more functional and interactive by adding these action buttons to it. That could be, you can select whatever action you want, any one of those, and maybe self-assign. There you go, and change the name to self-assign, assign to self-assign, and then put an image up here if you wanted. Choose a file or whatever, or a different icon. We give a list of icons that you can choose. I don't know, whatever one's appropriate here. It really doesn't matter, whatever. So we go here and apply, and we have different buttons, and we're making here that provide the real functionality. Now, one thing we added, and it's not here in this version, but actually if I updated this forms designer, which is easy to do. It would do it. We now have permissions where these buttons will show depending on who same idea like the column and tab permissions, where it's based on the logged in user. It's based on certain conditions, whether these buttons show or not. It's actually really cool that they can show or not show depending on who it is or what conditions. We can have different buttons showing up here or not showing. Now I'll take that one off for now. So we go to edit. Let's look at the, it's going to ask me if I won't continue without save here. So it's going to ask me if we want, we're going to go over to the edit form. And now we can go into even more interesting space here, because now we have script actions and submit actions. Well, at the bottom of every form is your classic save and cancel buttons, right? But with submit actions and script actions, we can override those and add more functionality that happens upon submission. Let me show you what I mean. So if we take this submit button and put it down here, we now have submit action down here. Submit action can be set to do two things. There could be, you could run some JavaScript, such as go out to a database, read the database, pull the information in, or you could go out to another, create an item in another list. You can do all kinds of fun and interesting things with the JavaScript here, and we provide a context here for you to work from. Now, this is we could talk, if anybody wants to know more about this, we can go into more detail, but basically it just opens the door for enormous amount of capability to be just simply put in with some simple JavaScript there, so that when you press the submit button, it will now do all that besides just submit it into the list. It will also do all these other actions. Not only that, can you have script functions here, you can also add some custom actions also as part of that submit. You can also put in a simple script action. So the difference is submit will submit it. Script action will just take place in real time. So you might have something here which says, go look up in database some information, and the script will go out there to the database and put the information into the form in real time. Now, one thing I want to show you about this submit down here, if you go into the layout here, this is where these things down here start to apply. So bottom action button, we're going to line it on the right now. So now it moved over. Now we're going to go here and say hide the save button. So now we hid the save button, and we now have overridden that submit button with this one. So we could call this one submit, and it looks like any old submit button. Oh, it's got to have some action associated with it, I guess. So the thing is, now this submit button will take the place. We've substituted in our own submit series of actions, so that when the ticket is submitted, it will, or saved, it will perform those actions that we defined in our script and in our custom actions right here, as well as submit it into the system. That opens the door for a lot of capabilities, a lot of possibilities of what can happen when a ticket is submitted, besides just the basic submission of a ticket with, then it shows up in the list. Well, this can not only show up in the list, but also can do a lot of other things that are necessary as part of the submission of it. Now, the script action, I'll go back to now that we're looking at, is a little bit different. It doesn't submit, but in real time, it could look up information here and run a script and then populate fields inside the form dynamically, so that you could say, okay, I don't have this in a SharePoint list as contact information, but I have it in a membership database. Or I want to go right to an ERP system, or I want to write to a financial system, or I want to interact with a CRM. Well, now you can do that by writing up a little bit of code here, and then you'd say, okay, based on some field in here, such as say maybe the contact email address, you would go out, query the database, query the CRM, query the ERP, and return certain values, and then be able to populate the form with those values. It could be order, maybe the person's calling up a complaint about order number 2506. You don't know what order 2506 is, so you push the button and give me details on give me details on the order. It's going to read the order number, pass a SQL query over to your order database, and return back the information on order number 2506 in one fashion or another. Fields on here or some way it's going to return that back to you. So quite an interesting and capable way to extend the forms. Now, you may not need that. Don't worry about it if you don't. because you don't have to deal with that if you don't need it in your system. You can actually just use the Forms Designer for creating interesting and attractive and intuitive forms with the grouping in tabs, the grouping in sections, and the grouping in the dynamic, the cascaded lookup, the user information fillers, and maybe one simple action like escalate or self-assign or close it or whatever. That's going to add a lot of functionality to your system there without delving into all the scripting and everything else that further really extends it. And of course, we're here and we can help with that. We always see this as we are application developers. You're jumping in the pool with us, I guess you could say. So we want to help you out and make sure that these applications and forms will work the way you need them to work. And we really see NITRO Studio as a community tool that can be used to develop applications and help you streamline, automate, make your operation more efficient there through the use of SharePoint and Office 365 with these kind of tools. So we're back to, let's see, what else can I cover about the Forms Designer? We covered a lot on the Forms Designer. There's always so much more to go into and capabilities of what it can do that we want to, if you have questions or you want to see other actions or you have, interest in a particular area, we can do that. One thing also, it is mobile and responsive friendly design too. People inevitably ask about that. So it is mobile friendly and responsive in that way. Okay, I pretty much covered a lot of the Forms Designer. There's always, like I say, more to go into, but I want to jump before we end the webinar today. We have about 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes. I'll go into the Power Portal, which is another form, another aspect of the NITRO Studio. You can see here, just as an aside, when we're talking about NITRO Studio, we just really delve deeply into NITRO Forms. Well, look how much else is in this studio, and it comes as a package. You can look at the site or talk to us about the pricing, the subscription, and all that. But you can get a lot with NITRO Studio, not just the forms, but all these other capabilities. Now, I'll go into workflows and custom actions tomorrow, but right now, let's go look at the Power Portal. Let me first give a background on what that Power Portal is. What we've been talking about with NITRO Forms is working in the back end of SharePoint in the standard SharePoint interface where you're developing forms that run on the SharePoint list. That's great, and that's very useful. But the Power Portal is a separate set of web pages that will interact with the back-end SharePoint, but it doesn't. The user does not have to go back to the back-end SharePoint in order to interact anymore. And you can set up a secure barrier where the users have access to this site with the Power Portal, which is interacting with the SharePoint, but they don't have access to the back-end SharePoint because you don't necessarily want customers or users to have that kind of back to it. So here's, for instance, a portal for that same site that we're working on. This site, this portal, is designed to make it simpler and easier for the user to interact in a comprehensive way with the application. They come in, say, okay, I want to submit a ticket, I want to view my tickets, maybe I want to read something in the knowledge base, some FAQs over here, some have particular types of forms and tickets that they can enter in. So the NITRO Forms are working on the back end. If people go to the back end SharePoint, the standard SharePoint interface is what I mean by the back end. This interface right here. They're going to come in, they're going to open up a form, whether a new one or edit or display. But the portal is a whole different animal in many ways, in that it is given the same kind of information. It's using the same information, but presenting it in a whole different way that is simpler and easier and more intuitive for the end users to use. So here we have the Power Portal, giving them a nice interface. So when they submit a ticket, it will go over to the back-end SharePoint and create an item in the list. Staff will be notified and all that. But the end user doesn't need to see all the complexity of the back end. This is a much simpler interface. And in this, we can kind of create our own world in a lot of ways through the portal settings and how we configure what this looks like. In this case, it has the logo up here, it has a certain header, has certain menu items right here, has certain quick links, has a background image, a footer, FAQs, and these are all done inside of the portal settings. That's the wrong one. The portal settings right here. Let me open that in a new tab. Again, our idea with NITRO Studio is to give you as much capabilities and flexibility as you want here, as you need, I mean, as we found needed in ours. So here is the portal configuration, all the different things you can do, UI settings, homepage settings, portal pages, forms, themes. Also, we have links to our tutorials, our manuals, RKB, so to help guide you on how to use this portal settings interface. So let's look at what we can do here with the common UI settings, for example. We can change the header section. Here we can add our own logo. Of course, you want your logo, not Sticky Glue Company. You're going to put a different title there, different description. You can have where different links. All this can be set up simply in the portal settings, and once they're changed, it's a matter of saving it, and it applies to anybody coming to the portal. You can change the footer. You can change the menu. Here we have submit a ticket, view a ticket, knowledge base. You can also change the background image. In this case, we have a gradient we're using. We could go to an image if we wanted and choose a file and put an image up there. Maybe you have a certain image you want to use. I don't know if this one will work. Let's try that. Upload image. It just has to be a JPEG of the right size. Yeah, it's too big. All right, I'll have to go to another one here. But you can go in and add an image here and make it an image. Let's try this one right here. This one looks good. And now that will change the background of it. When that one worked, good. And you can also use a color or whatever. So now when you go back to the portal and refresh, it will have that image. Except probably have to clear the cache. Yeah, let me clear the cache here. Clear the data in the browser cache. And then we refresh that page, and it should have that image in there now. Oh, it should. I don't know. I thought I cleared the settings. Maybe I didn't save it. All right, save settings. Let me do that again. Save it and refresh, and it should have the image in there. There it is. Okay. So, you know, whatever image works with the color scheme that you have there, you can change the image, and, you know, you might want to change the blue and all that. So then if we wanted to go back to the gradient that we had previously, we could do that also. So very easy to change what it looks like here. And I might have to clear that cache again. Clear browser cache. Okay. It's just that the browser caches the latest image, so we have to go in and clear it when we're changing the background image. So now we'll go back to what we've had before. There, okay, very easy to do. So now you can submit a ticket. Let's see what submitting a new ticket looks like. Viewing tickets, knowledge base. So here, submit a ticket. Again, it has sections and tabs, different things. It's relating to the back end. It's pulling data from the back-end SharePoint, so it has to have fields there and show the fields here. So we have the same idea of the account, Bob's Woodworking Shop with Magnus Erickson, and his information again is the contact details. It could be a title, category, cascaded again here. So, you know, the person can submit this ticket and it will become a new ticket in the back-end system that staff will be notified. Now, the person who wants to see what tickets he or she submitted can do that. In this case, we're in the admin account, and the admin account has put in these tickets, viewed these tickets here. Now, something we can also do on this form, we have Jennifer Rodriguez, for instance, is the manager. Jessica is a user. So if I logged in as Jennifer Rodriguez, I'd see company tickets for her department, you know, Jennifer's tickets of the Northwest of, you know, her department, not the tickets. Jessica would only see her tickets. So there's different ways you can do it. So you know, you can filter out and give permissions to what view the person gets. It doesn't have to just be my tickets. It could be department tickets. It could be location tickets and that kind of thing. And these can be grouped and sorted, and there's different views that they can have in order to manipulate this view of tickets. Now they can go in and view the existing ticket or edit it. Now this is mislabeled product, case ID 41 we're looking at here. If we went to the back end, 41 is right here, mislabeled product, and using, you know, here's all the information on it right here. The same thing is showing up here in our customer portal, but this person's only seeing his or her tickets, not the whole back end SharePoint system here. And what this looks like, you know, how this is displayed is again determined in our settings underneath the pages, what list pages. Here's the list view pages. You set all this up. Search page, service catalog. The view submitted pages is right. View submitted tickets page is right here. We can come in and decide what we want on it, on this page. And we don't want the image of this guy, so we hid that. But we could put another image there if we wanted. We can come in and decide what fields are on here. We're seeing the view. These are the different views. Okay, so if I'm going to add another view here, I could. My open tickets, something like that. And then the actions, what happens after the ticket is viewed, is right there. So we do OK on that. Okay. So when we do OK, go back here. We should then view my tickets. We should have a different, yeah, see now we have my overdue tickets and my open tickets as well as the just plain my tickets. So all kinds of ways you can fool around with this thing. So back to the portal settings. There's also what page, how the form, there's a form of the customer service form, the tickets form here and what it looks like. You can work with different themes. You can work with security settings. I mean, a lot of things you can do with this portal. Almost like the portal itself could be a webinar, an hour webinar in and of itself, because there's so much capabilities here and how it could be used in different ways. It can be manipulated to serve the purposes you need in your organization and really present a very attractive, intuitive, friendly interface to the end user. That's the goal. The knowledge base is also another useful feature. We can come in and say, okay, what are the problems here? Glue, maybe the person wants to, how do I, some information on glue. So, how do you dye to sticky glue? So it's pulling from a database that was created in the system, and now it's able to see maybe a resolution to their problem right there. So that's interesting. Way to help them get self-service there inside here, inside this portal. Now, if we go back to the home page of the portal, we were looking at these different boxes here: question, complaint, suggestion, delivery issue, all that. That comes from the setups under our portal settings. Let me go back and go here. Keep portal settings like this. So here we go back and we go home page settings, and we have quick links, and then we go into quick links, and we can configure these tiles very, very specifically, what the tiles properties look like, how big they are, what the gap between them is, how many columns there are. We have 3 in this case. What the fonts are, where is it centered, is it top. You really configure those tiles to be very specific. So I would say, for instance, here's question. Let's look at the question box. We decide what color, what text color, what background color, what the title is, what URL it opens, what icon is there, where the icon is aligned, and what the style is. So if we look back at the portal here, we can see green with this icon here and all that. And that's all configured here, tile by tile, in this configure quick links section. So we go here and look at this one. We have a different colors, a different icon. You have a whole list of icons you can add that comes with it, or you could upload your own image on there if you wanted. What's the size of the icon, where it sits on the box. Very, very specific determination of that. It's going to be the complaint with the hand and the title complaint in this blue color. And then if you open it up, it goes to the URL of that ticket. It has complaint filled in. It might be a different form for that type of request versus the others. So here we go. Again, pulling the covers. We're going under the covers, under the hood, looking at how this is done to show you that there is enormous amount of capabilities to design this. Power is in your hands, as it says up on our NITRO Studio, to design that. Now, we just covered 2 aspects of NITRO Studio here, just the forms and the Power Portal, because we really want to focus on the UI, UX, user engagement, empowering and engaging users aspect of it, which we here at Crow Canyon have found, of course, to be one of the most important parts of an application. If the users aren't going to engage with it and find it attractive, intuitive to use, what good is it, right? Okay, so now it's been about 55 minutes, maybe 5 minutes left. I wonder if there's any questions going on here that we can answer. I want to also set up anybody wants to go further into this, I'd be very glad to do. With one-on-one demos, or by email we can talk. Also, when I go into what people inevitably are going to ask, what the deal is with NITRO Studio and how it's distributed and priced. So I'll go into that for the last 5 minutes. Go to this website, nitro.studio. It's our Crow Canyon property, Crow Canyon website here, part of it. If you're interested in our applications, you can go back to the crowcanyon.com site and see that. But oh, yeah, the reason I had that up is because you might be interested in signing up. Go to Crow Canyon/webinars if you want to sign up for if you haven't already, for our webinar tomorrow. Back here at the studio. Okay, features, components, pricing, resources. We have, support, all this available. You can get a free 30-day trial just by clicking that, filling out the form. And the pricing, we have low introductory pricing right now. This is something you want to take advantage of, I think, is that we're saying the NITRO Studio by itself without the Power Portal, the Power Portal by itself, and then the NITRO Studio Plus, which is all the apps plus the Power Portal. So let me explain that a little bit, wherever we are here. One of these screens, there it is. I'll show you. So here are all the apps that come with NITRO Studio without Power Portal. Power Portal can be gotten by itself. Then the whole NITRO Studio Plus is all of this, all of these. And the Power Portal, we figure, is quite a comprehensive application in and of itself, so we separated it out. But otherwise, all the other parts are part of the NITRO Studio base version. Then there's a Power Portal by itself, and then there's the Studio Plus. A lot of people go for the Studio Plus just because it's not that much difference in price, really. So what we have going on now is $69 a month. It's about half price of that per site. Unlimited forms, unlimited workflows, unlimited users, unlimited reports. Don't worry about any of that stuff. It's just per site. Now, we have 3 site packages, and people have been talking to us about site collection, 10 site or site collection, and other tenancy-wide type subscription. So we'll talk to you about that. We're open to hear what you have to say about that. But basically, I don't think anything out in the market is priced at this level with this amount of capability. And we realize that to get NITRO Studio going, we got to price it at a price that's attractive. And we're hoping that people who are first being introduced to it in this last couple months will see the power in it, take advantage of the low price, and start to build on our already our customer base and grow from there. There are tools out there in the market, Nintex, K2, but much more expensive, much more elaborate tools. But they're established players, so we have to come in. We have to come in and give you good pricing on it to get going. And we see this as co-creators. We're co-creators. We're going to work with you, help you get going on this. Take a lot of feedback. Hey, Scott, why don't you have this in there? Why don't you guys put that in the workflow? I mean, we want to kind of interactive with you guys to know what you need in terms of your application. So we have the 1 site. You want to get going simply on that. The 3 site is actually a better deal. That's per month. Comes to what, I don't know, this is like 800 something per year. It's a really minimal cost if you think about it. And that's just a little 1,600 a year. I mean, we're not talking big money here for the amount of value you get. And these prices will go up as we mature the product and build that user base. Once we hit a certain number of users, we'll go up for them who buy after. You guys will have this price locked in. All right, we're coming up on the noon hour for my time here in California. Appreciate everybody joining the webinar. Really hope to hear back from you. Any questions, any feedback. We really want to know what you need in a tool like this, and where we can go as far as helping you achieve the application success and use SharePoint and Office 365 in really useful, efficient, and economic ways at your organizations. So thank you all for attending. We'll stay on a little bit longer in order to answer any questions that have come up, but we'll also have a recording of this available. And again, thank you for attending. Let me see if I can get the slide up about our contact info going here in case you want to contact us. Okay, here's one right here. Okay, There you go. It's better just to send an email to, sales@crowcanyon.com or call us. I mean, all that. Oh, here it is, sales@crowcanyon.com. All right, thank you very much. We'll go on into the question mode. Jane, let me see if I can get, if there's any questions here. Somebody says, thank you for the presentation. Okay, it looks like some questions have already been answered. So we'll end it right here. And again, thank you and hope to hear from you soon. I hope to see you tomorrow at the webinar tomorrow also. Okay, have a good day. Thank you.